Sister President Janet Morgan Riggs, members of the Board of Trustees, colleagues of the faculty and staff, students, alumni, friends, and supporters of this outstanding liberal arts college, good afternoon. And a very special good afternoon to the women and men of the hour, the spectacular class of 2017. And to your parents, your family, and your friends. I do want to recognize my husband, James Staton. I want to acknowledge my dear friends, Barbara and Jim Tusling. Barbara and I worked closely together at the Smithsonian. I also wish to acknowledge two other friends, Joan and Peter Dixon. Peter is the chairman of the Abraham Lincoln Birthday National Commemorative Committee. It's a great honor. It's certainly a joy for me to be with you in this historic place, a place called Gettysburg, the place where President Abraham Lincoln delivered a speech that was 10 sentences long. It contained 200 words that were delivered in 2 minutes. And yet, it was a speech that lifted up the bold and bodacious idea that all men are created equal. Of course, today we proclaim that all men and all women are created equal. Dear graduates, we're really here to celebrate you because you stayed the course. You've managed to make do when don't want it to prevail. It's also a time to acknowledge, as we have done up to this point, your parents, yes, your family, those who have supported you at times. They have been your human ATM. Now, at your commencement, what is my message to you, the mighty class of 2017? My message to you comes in the form of my response to a question. The question: will you be the leader our world needs? The answer comes in the form of 6 characteristics that I think you must have to be the leaders of our communities, our nations, and our world. First, it's clearly a plus that you already have something you need: a fine liberal arts education. You have the kind of education that Gettysburg College has so proudly helped you to gain. And now, as you continue to learn, you can do so in a formal way, or you can simply do so by being attuned to all that is around you. By whatever means you continue to learn, I want to warn you, it will be costly in terms of money at times, and always in terms of your time. But as an old saying puts it, if you think education is expensive, you ought to try ignorance. Secondly, if you are to be the kind of leader our world needs you to be, you've got to have a passion to serve. Leadership is not about self-aggrandizement. It's about doing what is in the best interest of others. Indeed, everyone should be of service. As the old folks who grew me up would put it, doing for others is just the rent you've got to pay for your room on earth. What distinguishes a leader is that he or she pays more rent than other folks have to pay. Cesar Chavez, the legendary leader of Chicano farm workers, once said this: "The end of all knowledge should be service to others." Thirdly, our world needs you to be the kind of leader who sets high expectations for himself or herself, and then works hard to meet those expectations. Now, on this question of setting high expectations, I want to tell you words of one of my sheroes, Zora Neale Hurston. Remember now, for every hero in the world, there's at least one shero. Indeed, as a Native American saying puts it, we women hold up half of the sky. Zora Neale Hurston was a writer during the Harlem Renaissance. She was also an anthropologist. She said that her mother urged her and her siblings to jump for the sun. And her mom said, "You may not get there, but at least you will get off of the ground." The fourth characteristic of a leader we need you to possess is this: to be collaborative in your work. Of course, competition has its place in certain endeavors. And certainly this afternoon, we want some good competition because we've got a team that we're supporting. But even in sports, when one team is competing against another, it is the team that works well together that wins. There's an African proverb that captures the importance of a leader working collaboratively. The proverb is this: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. While collaborating is always the best way to get something done, the harder the task, the more one needs to work with others. Here's another African proverb. This one captures that point. When spider webs unite, they can even tie up a lion. Now, you will not be surprised by what I will identify as the fifth characteristic that a leader of your generation should possess. As the former director of the Smithsonian's National Museum of African Art, I must call upon you to make the arts an important part of your lives, and to make the arts accessible to everyone. Yes, our nation and our world need the advantages that can result from what is called the STEM fields: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But we need to put an A in STEM, and that spells STEAM: science, technology, art, and mathematics. Music, dance, theater, the visual arts have the power to not only help us to understand ourselves, but to understand others. I also challenge you, future leaders, to work to bring greater diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion into the world of arts, for the arts should belong to everyone. The sixth and final, in my view, is the most important attribute you need to possess if you are to be the kind of leader our world needs you to be. You must stand up and speak out for what is right and what is just. Dear graduates, how well you know that there's so much in our world that is not right and not just. Indeed, in our country and around the world, there's a resurgence in open displays of bigotry and discrimination. There are countless expressions of racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, classism, ableism, and ageism. We're living in a time when the kind of open expressions of homophobia that we thought had been put to rest have resurfaced. And think about how widespread Islamophobia has become as it fuels words and actions against immigrants. So what kind of leader does our world need to respond to these expressions of inequality and injustice? Our world needs leaders who will do what the great African-American lesbian writer Audre Lorde called for, and that is break the silence about our differences. Today, more than ever, our world needs leaders who will stand up and speak out about the beauty and the power of diversity. As a Chinese saying puts it, one flower never makes a spring. And listen to the words of Helen Keller, a social activist who was both blind and deaf. She said, "The highest result of education is tolerance." Of course, we need leaders who move beyond tolerance to respecting and celebrating human diversity. Each of us must do what we can to make our world better, to make our world more peaceful, to make our world more just. Now, there is an African proverb that explains why everyone can help in this struggle. Some people will say, "But I'm too small," or "I'm not important enough." The saying is this: if you think you are too small to make a difference, try sleeping in a closed room with a mosquito. So, dear graduates, I ask you to go on and be the leaders our world needs you to be. And finally, I ask this of you. If you are able to do so, would you stand? Would you put your programs in your chairs? Would you take this right hand of yours and cross your body and put it somewhere between the shoulder and the elbow? I ask you now to take your left hand, bring it across your body, and make the hands rather symmetrical. Get a good, comfortable stance. You ready? hug yourselves. And if you want to rock a little bit, rock a little bit. Say from the depths of your hearts, you've done it. Congratulations. Now be the leaders we need you to be.